It has not been recording the whole time that we've been going over First Peter. I accidentally didn't push the button. Oh well, I'm not going to bother with it. Yeah. Anyway. So, going over First Peter 1, there are a couple things that we're going to touch on, and I think we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 13 and read through that before we delve into a lot of what's being said here. But the subject matter for tonight is pertaining to love, and specifically to loving God. And even the way that we love each other as a community, as people, as friends, as whatever. Because the thing of it was that, last week we discussed how God loves people, and how different that is, how difficult that can be to even wrap our minds around, because the truth of his love is not something that revolves around our actions or our behaviors. It correlates, his love for us comes up sheerly out of who we are to him. He doesn't love us because we do good things. He doesn't love us because we are committed to him. He loves us because he loves us. It's just a very, very straightforward, uncomplicated thing. But since we're not accustomed to that, the way that a lot of us love other things is in response to how they make us feel, or how they affect us. Our love for another being is determined based off of what they do for us. And that's not the way that God does things. And that's also not really what we're called into as Christians. It's not about whether this person meets our expectations. Thank you. It's not about whether this person meets our expectations or not. It's about them being another person. It's about them being another child of God. Even if they don't know God yet, understanding that no matter what, they were born, they're human, they also are a child of God. In all creation, there are so many things that were made from the dust, just as we were made from the dust, and there's so much to love and to show love for, to appreciate, to recognize as being fellow creation of God. And in this place, there is a place to want the best for that, to take care of that, to steward that. So, before we go further with 1 Peter, let's jump over to 1 Corinthians 13.
I'm guessing 4 through 8.
Yeah. So, 1 Corinthians 13, and I'll just read through really fast. And just for context's sake, and especially with what we were just going over at the end of 1 Peter 1, where it talks about the perishability of men, it's important to recognize that as we're going over this one, because it comes right in the middle of a discussion on spiritual gifts. What?
Nothing.
Okay.
Filtered.
Okay. For the best. Anyway. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love,
It's on you.
I am only a resounding gong.
Bong?
Gong.
Couldn't catch that one fast enough.
G-O-N-G. Anyway. Or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection, as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So, the core of this message, we've been talking about 1 Peter 1, going over that, looking at the way that Peter discusses the people that he was addressing. He talks about their love for God and how that was illustrated in so many different ways, and even goes on to encourage them to continue on that path of loving one another and even going into deeper ways, deeper methods of caring for one another, of being there for one another. And see, the thing of it is in these discussions about love, even in these discussions about relationship, the intention is to transform us, to change us, to bring us into a new way of taking care of one another, of being there for one another. And even to be there and take care of the people around us, our fellow Christians, just the people that compose our communities and our lives. See, the truth of the matter is when we're met by love, as it's illustrated here, especially when it doesn't come with any expectations or any strings attached, any conditions. When we face love that does not come with condition, how does that affect us? Inevitably, as we face it more and more, as we see the truth of that, that does have a tendency to transform people.
Sorry.
And I think it's funny because in so many ways, what we're so accustomed to, since we typically live in this place where love is a conditional thing, it lives and dies based off of our feelings, based off of what we feel about people and feel about the situation. Exactly. Because of that, we oftentimes are accustomed to that kind of response. If I screw up, my anticipation is that the people around me are going to disappear. If I am suddenly proven to not be everything that I would like people to see me as being, if I'm not fulfilling their expectations, they will abandon me. Because at that point in time, their love is a direct reflection of what I do and what I am to them. And the moment that they see me as anything else, I am suddenly no longer lovable. This is the mentality that a lot of us carry. And the truth of the matter is that we carry that mentality because that's so much of what the world is. But see, with God, that's not Him in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't offer love under condition. His love is always there. It doesn't matter what you've done or what you've been. It doesn't matter who you are right now. His love doesn't change. It doesn't matter who you're going to be in the future. As you screw up in the future, it's a funny thing because we oftentimes look at sin as being the end-all, be-all, the thing that will destroy us. And whether that's a truth, there's also forgiveness in those places. There's grace that's already set aside for us. As God anticipation, His knowledge of us is that we're going to fumble. So, in these places, Christ's sacrifice is there to cover those sins just as much as the ones that we have done. And God's not stupid in any way, shape, or form. He sees every decision that you could make, and he sees the end result of every decision you can make. So his love stands in those places. We can't surprise him. If I decide to if I decide to do any number of things that could make me feel better for a moment, if I choose to forego the places where I've been committed to God as far as my body's concerned, if I go hook up at the bar or something like that, there's grace and forgiveness that's already there for me. That's not just.
You were gonna say I'm gonna go be a hooker.
I could do that too. I do need
Do
money.
that. It's horrible. Be a pimp. Run the game.
The
Bible pimp. Let me smack some holiness into you.
oh god dang it. Anyway, immediate thoughts of Pulp Fiction. I will strike thee down with glorious vengeance.
Okay.
So-
Okay, because the really big one that I wanted to say, it definitely needs a fucking filter. Definitely. And it almost just like gushed out and I had to stick my head down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know what you were gonna say.
It's good. You shouldn't. Especially you.
The thing of it is that there's already grace there for those kinds of decisions, those kinds of choices. And that's something to be stepped into. But that doesn't mean that those things are acceptable in any way, shape, or form. Don't misconstrue that. There isn't a place where our sins are justified. They still are things that stand between us and God, and they are things that can kill us in the sense that they are typically the manifestations of things in our heart that are opposed to God and that do oppose us from Him and His will. But the point is that there's grace in those places because the intention here is to lead us away from these things, to draw us into a place where our hearts can be fulfilled by God entirely. So looking at 1 Peter and where these kinds of things come into play, the biggest thing that I'm going to look at with that is even the point about being holy and how we're called to be holy. See, it's an interesting thing because in that same place where we've talked about conditional and unconditional love, we are called to follow God's example in that, to show unconditional love, to be unconditional love to other people. And you know what's really fascinating about that is in communities that show unconditional love, people change as a response to that.
Yeah.
Because see, a lot of the reasons for why we feel the ways we do, the kinds of loves that we believe in, the things that we accept as true, even a lot of our perceptions of reality have been dictated to us in response to the ways that people have treated us. We are the product of our environment and our genetics. But all of these things come from our parents, our society, culture, friends, family, all these different things.
I like to be sanitary. Your sister gave.
But see, the thing of it is that God calls us into something totally different. He calls us into His way. So, in order to be, since we have so many of these kind of mentalities that are created by other people, He calls us into a circumstance where it's His way being done. And the best communities that I've been a part of, or that I've personally seen, or have existed in general, are the ones that do prioritize God's way over the world's. Rather than accepting what we have been brought up with, rather than accepting what has already been, they choose to sacrifice that.
And that's why America was great at one point, correct? And that's why money was backed by gold and silver.
Sure.
And now it's not.
I don't think that last part correlates in any way to this message. However,
Because it actually meant something, because we had fundamentals and God was in everything. And now our country is run by a bunch of different things and people have lost their way.
Like my mom told me when they started taking out the 10 Commandments in schools, there actually was a higher chance of higher percentage of like crimes happening and stuff after they get taken down. So
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
sorry, off topic a little bit.
a little bit. The point is that, well, okay, look, just to like address that point, there is a distinct difference between a forced circumstance and a chosen circumstance. In a lot of ways at that point in time, there were a lot less crimes, there were a lot more Christians in the world, but that was a forced societal thing. There were a lot of people who went to church, who claimed to believe in God, but whether or not they believed in him or not was completely open to interpretation. And that's actually been illustrated by the effect that it had on theology for decades after. We're still coming out of those places. There are still people who believe those things that didn't actually relate to God in any way, shape, or form, but it related to the subject of the legalistic society that people have.
Yeah.
So, although it's true, there's evidence to back that, there's also evidence that it was a broken system already. So, but addressing like the other side of it here, where it correlates to us stepping into those places, that's where it comes down to, is that choice. See, one of the hardest things to do for people in general, and it's funny because I was saying this exact thing to a friend and it's been brought back up here again. Inevitably, in every church, in every group, somebody has to drop their guard and be vulnerable and step forward and say something to the effect of, I trust you. I want to trust you. I know that you're probably going to fuck up, but I do trust you. I want to trust you, and I want to believe in you. And I want to believe that God is going to do incredible things through you. I want to believe that we're going to be able to move into a different place as opposed to being stuck in what the world has been giving us this whole time. Somebody inevitably has to do that and then actually follow through with that and actually put their trust and faith in the other people around them. To say, I believe in you. And give them the opportunity to screw up. Or not. Because that's the thing that it comes down to, is that so much of what we're doing here, what people did in those early churches, where Peter was addressing, where Paul was addressing other ones, like the Philippians, for example, they did this. They gave themselves over to this. They were willing to faithfully step out in these places where they could get hurt. And the truth of the matter is that people did get hurt, and they still get hurt. But that's okay, because God can work that stuff out. And in the process of community, it's one thing when somebody screws up and then comes back and, repents. Or sometimes they don't. But if the rest of the community is there for you, then it's okay. They can walk you through it. They can care for you in this time and place. So much of what this involves, of loving one another, is about being present and about being there for each other. And in a lot of ways, what was illustrated by Peter talking to the people who he was writing to in his letter was that they were doing this. In so many ways, they were loving God and loving each other, and they were functioning as a church, as a community. And the honest thing is that so many of the things that we choose over God, even like the way that we will choose that the way the world is, it's really funny because we always go back to this thing that people never change. And that's in no way true in any way, shape, or form. Cultures are always different. We have a belief that people are a certain way based off of our culture and our experiences. But then you go to another country and people are completely different. They function in a completely different way. Although some of the motivations might be the same, some of the core stuff might be the same, their methodology is different. They act differently. So, if we're products of our environment more than of our design, then what does that say? And isn't that a faulty mentality to say that people are never going to change? Because if you end up in just a different culture, people can be different. So, the big thing here is to even have faith in people and in these things. And the other point here is that those kinds of cultural elements, those places where we feel that people will never change, that's not true, because at the end of the day, something that is addressed here throughout these scriptures is the point that what we do on this planet is short-lived. Everything has a time limit. Every culture has a time limit before they come to destruction. Every society, every person, every idiom that we try to follow. You can go back to like old Roman ideals of Stoicism or Epicureanism. Do those still exist today?
Never heard of them.
Exactly. The point is that in some ways they can be seen, at least some of their mentalities could be seen, but the truth is most people don't even bother with them because they're old mentalities. They structured the entire Roman nation at a time. Everybody in Rome was kind of divided between these two camps of thought. It's like in our society where everything's based off of conservative or liberal. You are one or the other, unless you choose to be outside of that box, at which point they don't really know what to do with you.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah. But that's the thing of it, is that we're colored by these two ideals, these two idioms. But those will die one day. They don't really have a bound on who we are beyond how much we choose to accept them. So in these places, these will pass away. However, God's stuff does not. So when he talks about love in in 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about this in correlation in the middle of a discussion about spiritual gifts, which are one of those things that a lot of people cling on to as they really illustrate the reality of who God is. When somebody goes out and prays for somebody to be healed and they're actually healed on the spot of their broken leg or their cancer, that says something. That says something huge, and that brings a lot of implications about the reality of God's being there. When somebody gives a prophecy, when somebody says, hey, this is what's going to happen in the future, and then it happens, that has some significant implications of who God is and how he's speaking through that person. Just as much as in the prophecy case when somebody walks up and says, hey, this is this thing that I've heard about you, and they're describing a current life event or something that you've done in your past. Their reality is about how much is seen by God. Spiritual gifts have this crazy effect on things where they make God real in a lot of ways. And yet in the middle of this discussion, Paul stops to talk about love. Because at the end of it, even describing what love looks like, because at the end of it, spiritual gifts are something that will also pass away. They're temporary. When the end comes and everyone's living with God, what point will there be for healing if there's no hurt? What point will there be for prophecies if God's right there? He doesn't need to speak through other people to other people. You can just talk to him directly. And see, at the end of it, these core things that really matter the most, faith, hope, and love, these are the things that we should be valuing more than anything else.
But the greatest of these is love.
Right. Yeah. So is this making sense so far, or?
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts on it as it is? I'm also pretty sure that I swore
You
on
did.
the recording.
You
Great.
did?
You did.
Okay.
That's why I was like, oh crap.
I didn't hear anything.
I dropped the F-bomb.
Oh, really? Wow.
Doing that more recently.
I don't think I've heard you say that. See, Chelsea is being an bad influence on you.
Right, yeah.
Probably push stop
For what?
until she gets back.
I was actually just gonna ask you guys your thoughts on this matter, and specifically like, you know, where you actually believe in this, or don't. And even if you're open to believing in this or not.
No, we're so,
I do.
we're so advanced
Yeah.
now. Yeah. I know.
They're 100 times. That's all.
Why?
Don't like it.
Okay, well, you were on the last recording the whole time,
Yeah, got that.
because I was like, it was
I didn't
angled. You talked a little bit. Anyway. How about you, Shane?
I'm just really quickly rereading First Peter, if you think anything
Yeah.
to comment about.
So I was asking everybody, you know, does this make sense so far, and also what are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on this concept of love, and do you even believe that this is such a thing that's even possible?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes though, like, I guess, I don't know, since we are human, unconditional is through, I guess, certain people, like, that you meet for whatever amount of time, and that kind of gives you a glimpse, or like a stepping stone to become more like that. But it's kind of, to me, like a puzzle piece, like different people unlock these different parts of you to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's what I try to do. I try to be like unconditionally loving, like I know I kind of like hide behind my little perverted exterior. However, okay, I'm a very loving person.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
From all those stories you were telling us?
Yeah,
I
I'm
can-
a super loving person.
I can actually believe that.
Yeah.
I'm a really loving person.
So there's a certain type of person where ultimately they love people, but passion can oftentimes become the thing that makes it hard to see that.
Yeah, except when you're shown that.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to figure out where those lines are though.
Yeah.
And you go through life that way.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It's like I think you are that kind of person.
I'm a
where-
really passionate and intense person.
Yeah.
You know?
There are points where a lot of people, they might not see, you know, what your intentions are behind what you're saying.
No. I know that. And you just gotta, you know, shoot them down a little bit. Well, because if their intentions aren't correct and they're not gonna be in alignment with you. So far this week, I've had somebody ask if I could have their babies. If they would want me to have babies with them.
It's just like a
I've
regular
gotten like
start the
phone
conversation.
numbers upon phone numbers. Shit's happening.
Man, I wish I was getting all that attention.
Well, I mean, like, be careful what you wish for, because let me tell you, this has never happened to me before. It's never happened to me before. And
See, I would be thrilled to, like,
It's
if
been getting
girls,
weird.
if girls kept giving me their numbers, like, I would be thrilled about that, honestly.
If you would, then that's all you gotta do is align yourself with that, and then it'll be, I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. The more that you work on yourself and the more that you, like, show your love. Oh, actually, my yogi tea today. Show you this. Yeah. It is, like, crazy. Wherever my pictures are. This iPhone.
So just for for those who end up viewing at home, I apologize for the F-bomb I dropped during the course of this message. It was not thought out.
What is that?
It says give love, get love. And that's true. The more that you give, the more that you get. So if you want more girls,
Oh.
then you gotta be a loving person. Like today, I went and
Well, I mean,
bought
I've
like the
been,
maintenance guy.
one of my friends, her and I were like texting all morning and afternoon, so.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Like the maintenance guy today, I like bought him a Red Bull because Amelia texted me. I'm like, hey, I'm at the store. Like, do you need, like, no, I texted Amelia. I'm like, I'm at the store. Do you guys need anything? He's like, will you bring a Red Bull for me and one for Chris? And Chris made me wait outside for 5 minutes, and I'm like, do not ever make a woman wait on you.
For 5 minutes.
5 minutes, it was cold. Okay.
Did you stop recording?
No?
So,
You could always
more of the
edit.
story. Do not
Edit
make.
these.
I actually don't know how to.
Oh.
Oh.
Do you not have the video
I can show you.
stuff?
I have the
Here.
video stuff, I just don't know how to do it.
Oh.
I tried it and it didn't work.
Like iMovie? Do you have iMovie? Get iMovie.
Go ahead and edit the least important people out. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So, anyway,
So why are you pointing to yourself?
So-
I'm not. I'm the star of the show. I'm kidding. I know you are.
what were your thoughts?
Um,
Because you were rereading First Peter for the sake of it.
yeah, I started getting distracted because my brain cannot concentrate on something when there's like people talking around me. So yeah. Nothing against you guys. It's just like I can't do that. But gosh, I'm not sure. I mean, the thing that was kind of going through my mind was like God is the like ultimate definition of unconditional love, and I don't think it's possible to show. I don't think it's really possible to show unconditional love unless you have like Christ in your life. So yeah, I mean that's basically what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But even if we do have Christ in our life, it's still hard to show unconditional love all the time because we're not perfect. But I feel like it's definitely a lot easier to do that too.
So, continuing on with that, like there are places where, like what you said is completely accurate. Like showing unconditional love is not possible entirely without Jesus in our lives. And even this is like a manifestation of the Holy Spirit to be able to be love to other people. At least in this particular sense. One of the big things here, though, is that in that place it's not called to be perfect. And even the concept of unconditional love, it doesn't mean just accepting everything. And I think that's one thing that's kind of hard for people. Just to like clarify that, there are times and places where people can do things that are unacceptable, even in this place of like love, for example. And it doesn't mean you stop loving them, it just means that you can't really have a relationship with them in that sense. Especially if they're like destructive to you. That can happen as well.
Yeah, I was watching this. That reminds me of a video I was watching. It was really heartbreaking, but there was a bunch of these like evangelists in Seattle. They were basically like abortion abolitionists, however you say that word.
Abolitionists, yeah.
Yeah, and it just showed videos of them just kind of like explaining like. And they were like, all they showed was love. Like, there was no hate coming out of them. But there were so many people that would, like, lash out at them, mock them, be like, you're in the wrong neighborhood, get out of our neighborhood. Like, throwing F-bombs all the time to them. And, like, so one guy was, like, mocking Jesus or something. And it just reminds me, like, these are the same people that expect us to be tolerant of their actions and their beliefs. But yet it's okay for them to not be tolerant of our beliefs, and that's not how it works. And it just like these Christians, like I honestly don't know how they were able to deal with these people in their faces. Like I would have lashed out back. Like to be honest, I would have. Like there was like it's oh man, kudos to them for being able to just hold their ground and not get upset at these people for what they were doing to them, but yeah, it just breaks my heart to see that. Like that's like society these days. These people expect everyone to be tolerant of their actions, but it's like, oh, but you say the name of Jesus and people get offended.
Yeah. So that does like proc a question. and that is, do you expect that the world is going to be fair
No,
just because you believe in Jesus or because you illustrate him?
no, definitely not.
So there is a place where it's not on us to expect fair treatment.
Yeah.
Even in these places of being love to people, oftentimes that does come in a situation where we're going to be hated for what we believe, but it doesn't change the fact that this is who we're meant to be.
Yeah.
And the hard part about that is even in being like love to other people, namely like people who are angry at God, non-believers, things like that, even some Christians or supposed Christians, they will still reject you. They still will reject those places and those people. It's the same thing. See, the thing of it too, even here, is that as we function in the Holy Spirit, existing in that realm of being so close to God and so connected to God, where we manifest parts of His person, which ultimately is kind of like one of the core things that we seek and hope for here. It's one of those key things to being a Christian. The Holy Spirit is to the Christian as the fur is to the cat. You can't really have one without the other.
Except for the Siamese cats.
Heart is to the cat then. There. Try cutting that out.
I was going to say tail, but even some cats don't have tails.
Yeah.
Whiskers.
Yeah. I realized the flaw in my analogy after I said it, and I was like, crap. Nobody catch it. And then you said it, and I'm like, dang it. Yeah.
Bless you. Gesundheit.
So, anyway, though, in being in this whole place of being that illustration of Jesus to other people, because at the end of it, that is the design. See, we're called to be holy as God is holy, and the hope and the dream is that we will be reflections of Christ. And even though we'll never be perfect in that, there's still many parts of Him that we can implement. And even with each individual person, there are different parts of Jesus that are illustrated, that come out, where one might be best suited to discuss justice, another one may be better suited to discuss patience, better suited to illustrate these qualities.
I was just waiting. I was waiting for you to tell me what I'm supposed to be illustrating.
Anyway.
You're like, nope, inappropriate.
The point is that in all of these different things, we come bearing a part of the Holy Spirit. And no person is expected to illustrate all of it, in the sense that in community, we're able to work together to fill in the weaknesses and be strengths for other people. We can expect others to be our strength, and we can be strength to others. And even in those places with the people who are strong for us, we can be strong back for them at different times. And this is part of that relationship that's fostered in this place of loving one another, trusting one another, taking care of one another. Things that Peter's discussing in this letter. And even in the place of trials, that's one of those really key things where love can best be illustrated. A recent thing that occurred at one of the church groups that I'm involved with was that we actually had an incident where one of the guys on the leadership team decided to sleep with one of the girls that was part of the group.
Oh my.
So this was found out very quickly because ultimately there are a lot of people that are already hearing the Lord very clearly, and God was not willing to just let that slide. Things were seen, He told people knew.
The girl never said anything?
The girl did say something after she was confronted about it.
Okay.
And the leadership guy, he said something after he was confronted about it as well. But it was definitely this thing, like she came out immediately and just like gave up the information. He fought with the other leaders about it. The point was for both of them in this place where they could be shunned so easily. The typical response of a church to people in that, especially like a leadership position, are to remove them from the leadership positions and possibly even kick them out of the church.
Yeah.
What this church decided to do instead was to address the issues for what they were, but also to be gracious to them. Acknowledging that it was sin, but at the same time, still being there for them. To talk them through
It's biblical though to like kick someone out of leadership if they do something that's not. Like, doesn't Paul talk about that?
Paul does talk about removing people from the church
Yeah,
if
they keep doing what
if
they're
they
doing,
keep
yeah.
committing
Do they have
themselves
a
to sin.
relationship now?
Not really. I mean, maybe. It's possible it could come, but right now they're just like trying to figure that out. So, that's kind of like where it was. Like, he liked her already, and maybe she liked him
Animalistic
too,
urge.
but it was pretty well like that, yeah. Like, it was described as they had a couple drinks, and then things went places they shouldn't have.
That's because they don't want to be vulnerable, but like, hey, we just wanted to do this because no amount of drinking, unless you're an alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
think they should more address that.
yeah. And that's what's been addressed. Like, that's where the other people come into play.
Stop bullshitting as a leader, you dumb fuck.
Exactly. That has in different words.
More gracious words?
No, just different words. Like, the swear words were still there, just other ones were changed. But those things were addressed. Like, and that's the point in this, is
You
that
mean those things were undressed?
God dang it. The point is that in this place, the whole message is just gone. We're just deleting the whole
It's actually-
video.
It's not gone.
Yeah.
It can't.
It's gone.
Anyways, the
It's partly
point.
his fault too.
Shut up, Jeremy. Anyway, it is partly my fault. Anyway, the point is that in addressing these subjects instead of like kicking them out, both of these people are the kinds of people that anticipated being kicked out because their past experiences with churches and church groups and with people in the church in general told them that this is what was supposed to happen now. This is what they deserved. But as a response, since the church body did not respond in that way and instead showed them grace and let them stay, there are places where they had those kinds of struggles addressed, and even where they're more able to even recognize who God is in their lives, to even receive more of who He is. Because suddenly those hurts don't have as much bearing as they used to. They don't dictate what they can believe and what they can't believe, because suddenly they have a challenge to that. Now, because love was shown to them, that wasn't conditioned based off of their performance, they're able to even understand that that's a real thing. So it's in these kinds of places that, especially in the face of trials, because this was a trial for their church. That's one of the leaders of the group. And he made a mistake. And even though he was repentant, there were still things that were done. Like, he's not presently leading at this point in time. Like, he's kind of been pulled back for a minute. Until,
Do you know this guy?
yeah.
Oh, you do.
This is part of a church group that I'm involved in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, I was even one of the ones that got word about it and like talked to him explicitly.
Yeah.
But that was the point, is just that, it was a different take. It wasn't what was normal, or what would be perceived as normal. And as such, all these places where God talks about His love being unconditional, all these places where He illustrates a love that's about the person, as opposed to the circumstance, they're able to actually receive that. And there's opportunity for transformation to actually happen in their lives and in their hearts. And it already has been happening. I talked to the girl at length, and yeah, like the difference between her 3 weeks ago and now is night and day. Where there were places where she expected to be ostracized, because in the past when she'd made mistakes at old churches and old church groups, that's what happened. And as such, she held so many judgments on herself based off of that. So in
Wait,
a
so
way,
you're saying that this isn't the first time she's done this in church groups?
not necessarily. She's made mistakes in the past of other kinds
Oh, okay.
and been ostracized for that.
So like this just happened like not too long ago.
Like a week ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like it definitely colored the week, I'll put it that way. And dictated some of the conversations. Most of the conversations.
Is this your like Monday night group that you go to?
It's one of them, yeah. Yeah. Anyway. So, the question now is like, for each of us here, where do you feel like people have actually met you and been this to you? Also, where do you feel like you've been this to other people? Or have you not? Or have you never had this be something that you've gotten to enjoy, to appreciate? Has there never been this place where people have challenged you by being faithful, hopeful, and loving to you? And then the other question that I'll probably end up ending on, just to like stop the video, so we can talk more. The other question that I'll end up asking is, would you be willing to be this to somebody else? Or do you feel like you don't need to? Or do you feel like you're validated to remain where you are? Are you open to the transformation that comes with the Holy Spirit, moving you from one party to another? Are you willing to allow God to take you into His camp instead of being something else? Are you willing to be loved, and are you also willing to be loved in these kinds of places?
She's second. Sorry, I lost her. Yeah, she